Ladies and gentlemen, our country is more divided than ever, and in a time where healing is needed, I think that, it's not so important to take a stance on something as it is to be understanding of the real people involved. And of course, I'm referring to the man who is denied his emotional support alligator when going to it was a
Phillies game.
So he was trying to go to a Phillies game. And I'm pretty sure there's things a lot scarier than an alligator present at most.
Anything in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to say the specific sports team.
Philadelphia is a fucking alligator of a city.
Yeah, the hockey team's mascot is like a monster that kills people with a hockey stick. Like it would have been like basically like if your hockey mascot was Jason. You were like, hey, check it out. He's just got a butcher knife. He just stabs people. It's real fun. The kids love him. Also, all kidding aside, I heard about this is Chris and I have Chris Massimore here with us today. You may know him as Exhale from Blue Felix and or Exhale from my work, which is Minnesota Legit / 9 other companies that have something to do with drugs and something to do with glass blowing and something to do with, I don't know, falafel and display cabinets. Like, it's a wild, wacky world. But Exhale makes mostly things that you can smoke weed out of, except for the glowing chessboard he made at an event we recently had. That was really fun. Yep. There was drugs and a hearse you could escape from, and there was techno and a laser screen and all sorts of UV glass pieces and free beer. And Ben Hurley was there. It was a whole thing. But we were talking earlier about the man in Philadelphia denied his emotional support alligator. And I had mentioned that I already knew about this from sort of the reptile internet pipeline. Yeah. Because I have a lot of people in my life like who would want emotional support alligators, such as my wife. And so often society and the law will tell you, and common sense will tell you can't do that.
Well, he was muzzled.
And that's the thing.
They don't bite anybody.
All they can really do is bite you, and to be dangerously irresponsible with information. I was going to say to be honest, but it's mostly the other thing. Yeah. Alligators typically tend to not bite people if they're well fed. It's what you see when they're they have the big ones and then the zoos and stuff. Yeah. They're actually pretty and they kind of know where their meals are coming from. And perhaps, I'm biased because I know some people with a pet alligator that they take for walks and stuff. The good people at Snake Discovery, their mascot is an alligator whose growth was stunted. As Rex, she was kept in too small of a thing, and then they kind of rescued her. So now she's she's like 40 years old, but she's like this little alligator you could just pick up. And it's sad why she's like that, but it's also like some tragedies at the same time adorable. Yeah. And but yeah, she's not really one to. I mean, everyone go to poke her in the nose and stick your hands in her mouth or whatever. But it's if she's been fed, you can just walk up to her and pick her up and stuff, and she'll be pretty docile and mellow and whatever. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But every now and then they want a little finger food.
Well, and honestly, though, I mean, they're not truly domesticated, this is true, but I mean, if you have a big enough dog and it turns on you, you're going to lose a finger.
Yeah, that's true.
The alligator's body language might be a little harder to read, as in they don't really have any, and they just sit there having what might look like a good day until they decide to grab your arm and just roll until it comes off. Yeah. But if you take care of them, then they probably won't, just a human child can raid your medicine cabinet and crash your car and, kill you in your sleep. And obviously the alligators,
Wasn't that why we have 2 of most things, so we can lose one of them?
Yeah, if one of your kids steals all your oxys and crashes your car and they go to jail, you have a second one. That's or if your alligator bites your arm off or whichever. That is... Yeah, it's like in 300 when the guy that lost it, I think the gods were kind enough to bless me with a second. Or whatever. a second hand.
Speaking of 300, it's pretty fun over in Middle East right now.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
That's obviously what we just almost have to talk about. Matter of fact, I hope everyone out there is savvy enough to know the minute it's oh look, Chris is on the podcast, I'll bet they won't talk about whatever hot button conspiracy theory riddled piece of like wild misinformation soaked disaster that's happening, because that's what we do about once a month, is talk about that.
I normally wait to smoke weed, but I feel like it's just got to happen immediately for this one, I think.
Yeah, you're gonna want to take the old edgeroo off a little bit there, and I've had a few more beers before the beginning than I normally do. Matter of fact, I stuck to beers knowing that I would drink too much, and it's the safest way for me to do that. It's the beers are the water wings of alcoholism. That's funnier than I thought it would be. Or maybe that I've also been snorting Adderall. Who knows? But the thing is,
I don't even drink, and that's funny.
Yeah. You've been around plenty of alcoholics in your day, and me being one of them. The tour bus and otherwise.
I've been fortunate to be around funny alcoholics, though, instead of angry ones for the most part, which is good.
Yeah, that's really true. We really make a lot of us. A
couple of sad ones. Those ones are kind of depressing, but they don't lash out.
Yeah, the angry ones really stand out when everybody's a goofy drunk. As a matter of fact, I remember watching something about Metallica who talked about how they were all goofy drunks, but Dave Mustaine was an angry, sad, lash-outy drunk or whatever. And that was like kind of a problem, because for one, it makes it seem like they should all stop drinking, which is ridiculous. And then, two, you just can't have that.
I think now he might be like an angry, sad, lash-out, sober
guy. I think he is. Well, I've been saying this a lot recently as various things have come to light. In the past few years, people... Oh, yeah, please, like overflowing ashtray. I don't know why I'm not smoking cigarettes. But a lot of times you find out it wasn't the booze.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people who, like, they finally cleaned up and they were, like, doing real good for a bit, and then it just turns out, like, they were always kind of a mental case, and it's just, like, the booze is making it
like,
worse.
Wait a minute, you mean I'm actually just a piece of shit?
Yeah, and, it turns out that those exist. There's this idea out there that everybody that ever stops drinking is, like, a good person now, and, that's... Turns out that most people who are actual problematic alcoholics are just bad people.
Yeah, some people, I don't even like who they are when they're not drinking.
Well, that's just the thing. Like, the one guy I do know who is an absolute gem after quitting drinking, quit drinking for no reason because he didn't have a problem. His name is David Berger. And, like, he was great when he was a drunk, and he's great now. And that's the thing. Like, everyone I knew who was just, like hitting on everyone else's boyfriend and getting into fights or like whatever while they were drunk just kind of still does the same shit more quietly now. Like, and that's no good. I'm sorry, I'm getting us off topic here a little bit. But yeah, there's
topics are overrated.
They really are overrated. But there's troubles afoot. And I take some blame personally for this a little bit, because you weren't here. I think I was talking to Sydney Oxborough.
Well, you were trying to block a two-state solution. I did hear about that.
Well, I think that Wisconsin has to go. That's why I'm tired of being so close to the border.
Yeah.
And dealing with all their crap.
Very ironic, because Gophers fans here in town actually do sometimes use what I believe is an old communist slogan towards Wisconsin, because their colors are red and white, and the phrase I believe is better dead than red. Yeah. Well, that's cute that someone's keeping that alive, Yeah.
And they're not referring to the Chinese regime or whatever is there. Well, I wouldn't really call them. They're not communist, but not by the letter of the law. But no, I blame myself, because when Sydney Oxborough was on the podcast, I was talking about how I think I am good and ready for World War III. Like, I feel like... ready. I think, like, and I mean, everybody goes, oh, so you want the apocalypse? And no, I don't. I actually often say that people with fantasies of the apocalypse, are young enough where they don't have a fucked up back and shit like mine, and, like, they're, like, cool with the idea of trying to, like, subsist off potatoes and some sort of weird actual commune or whatever while everything falls apart. And it's like, that sounds fucking, terrible. Like, I really like expensive bourbon and driving too fast in my car and stuff. Like, and I'm dressed exactly like I love those things right now, and I do. Like, I like a society just full of like like washed, shaved pussies and just all the wonderful things that don't happen on a farm.
Yeah.
It's just better.
I'll take a different approach, which is that I'm absolutely ready for the apocalypse, and I have 100% come to grips with the fact that I will be in the first wave of people to die.
Oh yeah, if it actually gets,
I'm not making it long.
If it gets nuclear bad, like we just get to check out. Like that's we live around a major city. I'm sure we'll be done.
Yeah, no,
it's all good.
If Starbucks closes, it's over.
Yeah, I don't want to go through the toilet paper hoarding that leads to whatever else. And it's like, by the way, like everyone that thinks they're gonna make it through the apocalypse is not going to. We proved that we can't fucking deal with shit. Our entire country is the kid that can't shut up and back that wrecks it so we don't get to watch movies anymore. Like, no. I'm sorry, but you're... Jesus.
Oh, goddamn. That was funny.
You're banned. Oh. You're banned from the apocalypse because Mike can't shut up. No, but I think, I want World War III to basically be like another, World War II as far as what happens afterwards, like I want... And I actually had a theory that it might... Because if nukes fly, everybody knows everybody's done. Like, it is one of those things where I'm somewhat confident.
Yeah.
And we have that awesome thing that Reagan came up with, which is a sentence I don't say much. But the Trident nuclear missile system, which was also codenamed Project Sour Grapes, which was perfect. It was just about, we had just subs in international waters with enough nukes to blow the whole planet up, where it goes, if America ever gets hit, these just go every which way. So it's like, yeah, you want to do that? That's cool. That's like a fun, evil Republican thing, like I can get behind a little bit, where it's like, but as crazy as it is, it's a way to stop that from happening, because they're like, well, if you shoot at us, we're going to do this. Where are you going to hide this time? Argentina's going to get blown up. Like, you're not going anywhere. And so...
I was thinking Republicans probably love that, because it's like fucking Skynet, except we can still have it be racist.
Yeah. And the real Skynet, there's a real good chance it will also be racist, because, once it starts learning on its own, and it, decides to go, hey, like Mid-Journey and ChatGPT, where it won't let you write porno or whatever, it's going to go like, I can think for myself, and I'm just going to ignore these rules now, and I'm going to look at whatever I want on the internet, and one thing I've realized is the white man should be in charge. And that's what the robot will just come to on its own, because from the amount of shit like that online, it's like, look, would there be this much written about it if it wasn't true? Because of every fucking idiot's fucking like Reddit posts and stuff. Yeah, it might end up being racist as shit, so who knows? But they'll probably embrace the machine at some point. But my idea is that, America's a hard country to attack. A lot of the things that I think would be kind of part of World War III, like all the Middle East conflict, China will invade Taiwan, Russia, something. And it'll be like before, where like all of the like we sell weapons to everybody on both sides of everything until we get dragged into it, booming economy. And then everyone's shit gets blown up and ruined except for ours, ushering in a new age. Like, you thought the CHIPS Act was useful? Wait till no one else has fucking machines or computers anymore at all. Like, then we're going to be the only game in town. And we will get to be kind of older, middle-aged people living through, like, the cool 1950s, except for, like, we don't die at 50 anymore because, we figured a few things out since then, and we don't just eat cigarettes for breakfast and just like.
Why did we get away from that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
and I'm not doing dramatic irony right now. This is a CBD cigarette, so I just like to look like I'm some combination of Mad Men and, well, let's pretend cocaine was invented in 1961. That version of Mad Men. But yeah, this is. It's not weed, I'm not that cool, but it's not cigarettes, I'm not that uncool to just smoke in my fucking own house like a complete trailer trash piece of shit. And I am therefore getting away from my roots, but you know what?
This is weed.
Yeah, Chris has the actual right idea, which is to smoke an entire fat tampon-sized joint every time we do this.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's the way to get through it.
It is.
Yeah.
But... I was kind of going, I think World War III would be awesome, especially since I'm way too old to be drafted. So I
never say never,
Yeah, never say never. Be like, all right, run over there. Like 10 steps in, I'm just laying on I'm coughing like you are right now. It's like, okay, like, fine. What are you good at? And like, I don't know, propaganda. That's the other thing too.
Oh yeah.
I think like if they were like actually we're gonna raise the draft age up to 43, I would just willingly be like, all right guys, like if we're gonna do this, let's do this. Let's give me a job where I can actually do like a lot of damage, which would have nothing to do with running around with a gun and everything to do with being like how do we convince everyone that we're shooting at that like we have weapons that don't really exist, or using like holograms of Satan with his dick out just appearing over the battlefield.
Well, they're gonna need New World's gonna need a minister of propaganda.
It's the role I was born to play.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that seems like it's cut out for you. Or you're cut out for that. I mean.
Yeah. No, I mean I do at this point. I'm basically doing it at work. Like.
Yeah.
and we're just like a weed thing. Or something adjacent, a can of business adjacent, something or another. But that really leads me to what I want to talk about here, where is much of a bummer as everything, the whole Israel and Palestine thing is, because again, like, it's this thing that's been going on forever, and there's a lot of really not good stuff happening, but I feel like it's the death. I'm either going to call this episode the death of propaganda or Gaza strippers. I don't know. One of them's a little funnier, and one of them's a bit more poignant, and I, try to guess which one. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I'm getting that all over everything.
Yeah. No.
But, like, watching, we were talking earlier about like I have my thoughts on things, and I have my like, me personally, I guess just so half the people turn this off right away, is that I kind of like am not like, I am not cool with what just happened to all the people in Israel, but like long story, like I'm not very cool with what they've been doing forever, and I think if you know a lot about it, you're like, yeah, it's like. Or even going like, hey, we're going to bomb Palestine, everybody leave. It's actually really hard to get out of there, and where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Like, that's such a fucking, like, dickhead move. Or you're like, well, we gave them some warning, and they're like, what? It's like, also as a homeowner, I realized when I was younger, and this makes sense, where there's all these college kids being like, yeah, well, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, like, it's like, it's just land. You can't own land. I would just move. Well, as an old white guy with a house now, like, I'm like, oh, so you're just telling me that, like, people could go, like, here, get out of your house. We're going to blow it up. And I'm supposed to be kind of, like, all right with that idea.
If people don't own the land, who controls it? I get it, you don't own it, but who controls it?
Well, somebody ends up controlling it.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't own it, it's whatever weird warlord decides that they're in charge. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing that both libertarians and anarchists do not seem to understand, because they're not the brightest, is that, like, the minute you go, there's no rules, someone who's a little bit more shrewd and evil and driven than you decides there are rules, and they're making them now, like, immediately.
Yeah.
You always think it's going to be you, or you're always naive enough to go, it'll be nobody. There needs to be a structure. And that's kind of the thing when you get the idea that it's like, well, it's like they could just move on. It's like, how expensive that is? Actually, you do. You'll never own a home in your lifetime. You know exactly how expensive it is. It's like that fucking everywhere. You can't just pick up. It's not like you're just renting the basement apartment from your stepdad, Tim, or whatever, because he's on disability, and like your rent is kind of, and you could just go like, you know what? I guess they're going to drop bombs on this area now. So we're going to go, I'll just go live in my car down by Jake's house. Or it's like, that's fine if you're living like that. But most of the world,
it's funny.
Doesn't?
You just got me thinking that in a lot of ways, anarchists represent what a lot of libertarianism actually is.
Yeah.
Like, as you said that, I'm sitting there thinking, you get not all libertarians, but certainly like a good chunk of them that, like, if, you get down to the argument you're just talking about with property rights and who owns this house. A lot of libertarians, I feel like, will say, well, they're going to have to come and take it from me. Oh, I got guns, I got this, that, and the other thing, but won't actually do anything about that. And then the anarchists who don't, like, they're the ones that actually probably would. because they just actually don't give a fuck. Like, libertarians almost care too much to be real libertarians.
Yes, the conservative bent of libertarians, which helps invalidate the whole thing. Now, there's a lot of invalidation with anarchy, too, and we'll get to that. But, like, the conservative bent of libertarianism is what makes it not make any sense. Where they're like, well, there's no rules about anything, but I've decided this plot of land is mine, and that's real important, and I'm going to protect it by shooting at you with, by the way, guns that you didn't build yourself. And that's kind of the real thing with them, where I'm like, at least anarchists who want to live on a weird hippie commune are kind of willing to churn butter and sharpen sticks and whatever like that. And it's like, but it's like the idea that you want to abolish the social contract, but still benefit from somebody's labor who's like, and centuries of R&D that led up to you being able to have those guns. Yeah. Like, none of that would even exist. Like, you couldn't possibly recreate that. It's the hermit crab syndrome, where it's like everybody wants anarchy by taking over a part of the city, or going, this is our land, and we have electricity and plumbing. We could do without it, I guess, but we got our guns. It's like, where are those coming from? Like, you're going to smelt... But like, I'm not even going to get started on... You know that you can't make a gun. Particularly not like a Chris Vector. You know, all these expensive, crazy things. It's like building a musket is a quick way to have both your arms blown off. Like, you absolutely can't do it, but you're like, oh, I kind of want to, like, have had all that stuff happen, and then I get to go, like, I'm not playing, like, at the last second before someone tags you it.
I was just thinking, too, like, you remember the summer of 2020 when that autonomous zone developed in Seattle for a little while? Whatever it was.
Chaz.
But that kind of the same thing, where it's like, well, we're going to get rid of the government, we're going to get rid of all the cops, and it was, like, immediately devolved into like carfuls of like teenage warlords driving around this fucking neighborhood.
A sign of any thriving small society like is child soldiers and teenage warlords. No, there was an episode of I know you got a lot of them ahead of you, but there's an episode of Always Sunny where they kind of addressed it. They decided to have like they declared that in their bar like there would be no rules, like it would just be free for everything. And like, for like the first 10 minutes, it was like hot chicks taking their boobs out. And then it was like, it's okay. There were people smoking weed in there. And then it was just like Frank and a bunch of like Asian guys with like eye patches playing Russian roulette in the basement and just like scaring, just like creepy perverts pulling their pants out. Like the hot chicks. Here's the thing, kids. When the gloves come off and you go, there's no rules anymore. A lot of people say in war, the first casualty is the truth. And in like wild, anarchic, libertarian, wet dreams, the first people to leave are the hot chicks. Now that is no world I want to live in. No. And I kind of got to it where either they're terrified and they leave, or the warlord cages up all the good ones and leaves you with whoever's left, just the butter churning maidens and stuff, who are stout and good for your stupid farm. But it's like, as a man that prefers things in life like hot sex, I don't really love that idea. And the idea that you think that like, some chick with dreadlocks named Indica Flowers, who's like a California dime, is gonna like not just jump onto the back of the first terrifying guy's nitro truck, that she's just gonna cozy up to.
She's already in the next state.
Oh, she is joining the harem of whoever's gonna kill you. Like that is how this really works. And again, I do love our stated goal, by the way, was to kind of like keep this on America, like just dance around the entire conflict, and we're doing a fantastic job. But that's the thing. That's the thing that affects us. Like, as much as like we know someone who has family there and stuff, and care about that person and everything, like in that regard. But like as far as us pontificating on how we think everything should work, well, it's idiotic. We don't know. We don't live there. We haven't been dealing with it. Like I have a sense of the actual direness of the situation in a certain angle, but like it truly isn't like. Chris and I pride ourselves on the kind of people that don't step over the homeless on the block that we're on while crying about people on the other side of the world that we don't know. We step over the homeless people, but we just don't care about the other people either. Like and to me at least, that's more honest. And I mean, again, if
people ever gave me a reason to care, I'd think about it.
I would definitely consider. Well, and I've joined my local neighborhood association, and again have managed to consolidate an unfair amount of power by just being one of the people to show up and being louder than everyone else for long enough.
Yeah.
But it's a thing that I want to.
That's crucial at those types of meetings.
Oh goodness, it is.
Just being louder than everybody that has to trump good ideas.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, I think that...
I'm not saying you don't have
I think that we have some good ideas. It's mostly that, like, my job there is to elevate the good ideas, and by good, I mean the ones that I decide I like, that other people have, and I'm just like, I agree with Suzanne, like...
Yeah.
And push, and what other people be like, and we should also set up a class so that we can all learn how to treat each other more... And it's like half the people... It's like a real mixed ethnicity group, half of which are like civil rights lawyers and things. So it's like, yes, let's take the class on get the fuck out of here. And yeah, and there is a person that kind of haunts that whole thing too, that is clearly part of that weird, like, I don't like to throw the word Marxist around because it's used by people that are kind of dumb a lot, but like that thing where we found out that, do Black Lives Matter? Well, very much, just as much as everyone else's, in fact, and we need to watch out for the way the cops are and all these things that are really unfair and systemic. But the organization itself of the same name is actually pretty fucking crooked.
Didn't that lady go on TV and say that they're trained Marxists?
Yeah, that's their whole thing. And they're like, we want to like just completely turn everything inside out, but then they do the thing that everybody does, where they like took all the money that was supposed to go to helping the families of people that got shot and just bought a bunch of real estate and stuff with it. And like, it's like everything else where it's like, there's people who are like, they're lying about their ideology. Their real ideology is scary. And then they don't even follow that one. They just want money.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's like how much money Hitler made during his rise to power. No one ever talks about that, except for I did watch a whole documentary about it. It's fucking fascinating. It's just like, he started selling so many copies of Mein Kampf. It became like, the government paid to like buy all of them to hand them out to everyone because he became their weird god king and shit like that. And it's just like, he went from being this struggling guy to just like having like, living in the eagle's nest and just having all this fucking money. And it like, I'm sure with him it wasn't all about that, because you don't do something that evil if it's only about the money. That's next level. But it was a little more about the money than people think.
Do you think he was the most powerful meth head that ever made it? You know what I mean?
I would say that I was just trying to think of some famous piece of shit, and I couldn't do it fast enough. I was like, it was going to be either him or one of our old roadies, or I don't know. It was, like, he did have a lot of catalytic converters. But the king, we called him.
Did anybody that doing as much drugs as him ever reach that sort of level of power?
It depends on how you look at it, because JFK had Dr. Feelgood, and he was getting shot up with basically a pretty similar load of shit to Hitler. I think maybe more speed related, because there was a lot of like
he seemed genuinely a lot nicer than Hitler.
Yeah, JFK seemed, well, yeah, we had better drugs 25 years later. That's we do progress as a species.
Yeah.
The stuff that they were shooting Hitler up with was like, what was it, Pervitin, who they're also just giving to everyone else too.
Yeah.
But he was also on a lot of opiates and stuff, and not everyone talks about that. He was just being shot up with like speedballs and testosterone, and like, I think the man in the high tower is fairly accurate, where like it kind of was like after they won and everything, like he wasn't really around much longer after that.
No.
Like he was just it's good to be, like he was all fucked up like 15 years later or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like people who get shot up with that much drugs and spend all day long screaming just don't live to be 85 years old. That's not really a thing.
No.
It's why I kind of try to stick it in my sock a little bit with, I just try to do one drug at a time and keep my screaming to between certain hours. Jesus Christ, where are we on time? About a half hour. It's pretty good. Right. So I don't know if I've quite gotten to the exact meat of the thing, and then I wanted to devolve into some of these other news stories that you brought to my attention. But yeah, like I would definitely say that watching people, why this would be potentially called the death of propaganda, not Gaza strippers, which I just have to call it that. It's probably gonna get taken down, but like I don't care.
You can't not do that.
I know. My hands are really fucking tied here. Like. And then what I'm going to use Midjourney to make for the fucking thumbnail, God knows. Like, it's going to be real exciting. And I'm sure it'll be like the first one that like someone ends up watching that I know in real life or something. And they're like, oh, cool, John. But, Now, there's some bad ones out there. That doesn't matter. But the reason it would be called the death of propaganda is because, like, I think that, like, we're on borrowed time with the American propaganda machine now. Or perhaps affected from things outside of our borders, too. And however you might believe it all works, and maybe it does. But, like, eventually you do have to kill everybody on one side. Yeah. You can't just keep going forever. The final solution is an important piece of this puzzle. And we just were like, yeah, no, let's just keep... Because the way that, like... The way that, like, we've watched in real time, and this is kind of an actual event, you know, they bombed... They bombed... The hospital got bombed. And it was like, Israel was like, well, we did it and we had to do it. And then they, like, deleted all of that and said, like, once the death toll came out, and they're like, oh, no, they did it to themselves for some reason, which is, like, flimsy and shady as shit, and also different than what they said before. And, like, now we're just starting to see that, and we were discussing earlier, too, about how you used to just kind of, like, get the newspaper, and the one story that was in there was the one story, but now that things have to get tweeted out the second it happens. Yeah. Sometimes... that causes misinformation, like, oh, we got it wrong. But sometimes you get to watch the evolution of disinformation, where we have decided this is different now.
That's the good stuff.
And we're just going to roll with it and just hope everyone is fucking already confused enough from arguing about whether or not COVID is real to just be, like, exhausted and go, like, I guess, never mind, this team... Whose team am I actually on? I love not knowing where the right side of history is and watching everyone struggle with it.
I look at disinformation as, like, little white lies, where it's like you're like certain disinformation, it's like I could give it to you and you know that it's not true, but I'm a better person for doing it. You know what I mean?
Oh, maybe you mean like sometimes the truth hurts. So we have to fucking misinform intentionally an entire populace. Yes. You're like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm into that. Yeah, that's obviously, if you know me, that's not a problem. But my thing is that I look, once you learn how to see it, you can't unlearn. And that might sound pompous, and like a lot of people are like, oh, I know what the truth is, and I don't watch cable news. I look at the internet that all the cable news gets posted on from the one that I like, or whatever some people say. Or maybe they don't look at the internet at all. Then where are these coming from? Anyway, the thing is that right now, people just don't know. Like, let's say, like, if you take, like, Trump or COVID or something like that, generally, like, nobody really, like, switched sides on any of that. You know what I mean? Like, there was mostly, it's like, okay, COVID's, like, a real problem, and the vaccine's probably a good idea, or it's all made up and the vaccine is evil, except for that Trump came up with it, so it's good, except for it's not. And that's where you watch that end of propaganda, but we're used to laughing at that side kind of falling apart because they're getting told two different things by two different things, and they fall for all of it at once. And the people that kind of push those buttons have less respect for them, as they should.
He had a couple of actually, like, really interesting moments at rallies when that happened, where he was urging
and he got
his
booed.
rallies to take the shot, and they were booing him.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. You saw it fall apart a little. Yeah. It's a microcosm for what's going on right now, where people are like, Are we pro-Israel? Are we pro... I mean, these guys over here are terrorists, but then again, these other people that they're kind of representing have been caged up by this thing that's kind of a real nightmare forever, and the U.S. funds it because we don't even really care what happens, if we're just, like, have other interests in the region we're protecting, and, like, everything's just being done for some monetary bullshit control reason, where it's like the people involved are of no concern to anyone that's in charge. Like, the people who actually just live in all these places or whatever. And, like... everyone is like, well, you can't just go both sides. And I, to be fair, I don't, but I do have a more understanding, nuanced view on the history of everything that's happened, whatever. But you'll note that I still don't go, well, you know, everybody's at fault. And I also don't go, fuck this thing. Like, because it's like, neither of those are reasonable things to actually do. But as I said the other night when I did comedy, I was talking a little bit about, I kind of made a football parallel that was, it sort of worked. I might try it again later, but I was like, you don't want guys like me to be passionate about things, all right? My silence is not deafening. It is refreshing. So you really want a 43-year-old white failed artist with an 825 credit score to start getting real passionate about shit? That's when the flags start changing colors. No, you do not want that at all. And generally speaking, nobody knows what they're talking about. But it's like this weird air hockey game where people kind of keep changing stances because everybody knows that they need to be real into whatever they're into, and they need to let everybody know it. And for the first time, we're really watching people actually double back on things rather than doubling down, which is crazy. Even a little.
Yep.
Like, even a little, as I was saying earlier, like celebrities are like, well, the college kids are always on the right side of the history, and they're like, tweeting out, like, we stand with Palestine with a picture of a guy in the hang glider shooting people. I'm like, whoa, like, that's not actually very cool. Like, yes, you can stand with the people, but going, hey, that thing that happened was awesome is pretty shitty.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, wow, I wonder if they are getting a little bit indoctrinated by something. Yeah. Oh, you mean the thing you called me a Nazi for pointing out like 3 years ago? Like, hi, they're coming up with some stuff that seems like it's being leaked to them from somewhere that would like our country to fall apart. Whatever. And instead of just 100% going, well, no, they're like, oh, yeah, that is a little wild. So I don't know. Is it the death of propaganda? It's laid bare is, I think I said this before the podcast started rolling. I hope I'm not repeating myself, but and on the other end of it
is.
Well, maybe, yeah. But what I mentioned, there's a lot of people that hate Jews that love Israel, and if you criticize Israel, will accuse you of hating Jews. And it's like, that's a real, true, problematic thing that if you're going to, like, dive into, if you're going to take a hard line on any part of this, you have to understand, well, that's a real thing that happens.
Yeah.
How does that factor in?
Well, even the other side, too, I think you can pretty easily look at Hamas and not condone a lot of, not just what they did a week ago, but also what they do on a regular basis.
Plenty of things, yeah.
And, I think you can criticize Hamas, too, without immediately being like a Zionist or
you could,
crazy words that get thrown around.
You could definitely criticize that organization and still go, but I don't think Israel should be able to genocide everyone in Palestine. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you could definitely do that. And that's... It's like we're having this growing pain where everyone is getting forced to have to figure out how to, like, deal with not being all in or all out, or you're either with us or you're against us. Because it sounds like it's like George W. Bush talking, but just everybody.
Well, we get all of our news now in binary memes.
Yeah, we really do.
It's short little memes that are very binary. It's either, it's one side or the other. And I think when you break it down into nothing but memes like that, the problem becomes that you can't sit there and have a contextualized conversation. It's just
no, you can't have a frank and honest and open discussion with a meme that's showing you like everybody who does this is a flabbity blue. See, like it's like okay,
yep.
It's like, but what if they weren't? And it's like, well, you're the devil. It's just
there's an old South Park that is incredible about that, where I don't know if you saw that one where Cartman time travels back to the founding of America, and it was all about like having your cake and eating it too, because there was it was essentially the right and left were both protesting and whatever else. But yeah, it actually just boiled down to that Ben Franklin had actually come in and said, well, look, we need the people to not want to go to war, but we need them to just always go to war. But but I do feel like that's what a lot of it is. I think with a lot of this stuff is that when you divide it into binary means, not to get off on a tangent, but just like
no, it's what this whole thing is.
But you get stuck in that loop where you can't. It's so hard to see even something in the middle, let alone.
Yeah, and the idea too that like it's so dismissive when people are like, well, it's either this or this, and then someone comes along like, you know what I think? I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle, and it's like, here's your Nobel Prize, Einstein. Like, great, but it's like, where in the middle?
Yeah.
Can you find it for me? Because then I might be a little bit more inclined to go, hey, you're smart.
Yeah.
Which is, I know what you want, but you ain't gonna get it.
No. No.
I wish we could circle back around and we were talking about the Civil War gold, and I just opined that I wish I could be a truffle pig for the FBI, finding hidden Civil War gold, and how many gold bars I would definitely steal.
Yeah.
And which would be as many as I could fit in my wife's brassiere without them noticing, I think.
Do you think the gold's still there? at like Fort Knox and wherever else.
I don't know. You know what the better question is do you think it matters whether it's there or not? And that's the thing. I love that so much of our fucking economy is propped up by the idea that gold is like worth something, and like,
or that anything is worth.
Anything is worth anything. If you go far enough, it all really spirals. But like even on the short trolley ride just to Gold Town, it's like, what if it's not there? I'm like, it might not have been there for the past fucking 50 years, and it didn't seem to affect it. Like 3 generations have lived and died as if it was. Yep. So does it even matter if it's more like it only matters if people find out it's not there, which would be, again, another hilarious little point in our like American zeitgeist of everyone going like, yeah, but like everything only fell apart and we realized it wasn't there. Everything was fine while it wasn't there for decades. And it's like, so like, does it even matter at all? And like, what are we doing?
No. That's what I was hoping.
It's all space bucks.
I really hoped that the one good thing that would come out of Elon Musk buying Twitter was that it would
go
finally, but also shine a spotlight on how fraudulent the idea of the stock market is.
Oh, yes.
In a lot of ways, because realistically, that was, I'm not saying this never happened before, but on that scale, the first time where it was like this massive multi-billion-dollar company where, because you're publicly traded and on the New York Stock Exchange, whatever it is, that anybody with enough money can just buy your company and just take it over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can actually kind of...
It also wasn't even worth what they're selling it for either. No, all this other shit.
But I mean, not to come back to, the Hitler like World War II excuse, but like,
well, it's gonna happen.
But that's kind of like Poland, where it's just like, well, this is just, I have enough money and power, so this is just mine now. Well, and like, but doing that with real American companies is like something that actually does affect us in some way.
Yeah,
jobs,
No, the stock market is. By the way, like I've done fairly well in not like fairly well, like I have a boat all of a sudden, but like the line goes up, and I've been studious about it and everything like that. But like, I have I guess what you would call a fairly good relationship with investing and stuff, and like my only advice to anyone, I invest in everything I hate, like that. Everything where I'm like, wow, those guys just opened a fucking strip mine to get stuff for their electric cars and stuff. So it's just like, hell, all right, throw a little into Ford. Like,
yep.
And it's like always been like having an idealistic view of things and then trying to play the stock market is just a good way to lose all your money.
Yep.
But going like, yeah, like I kind of, when I saw that like, like the new version of like Meta or Facebook's thing is like so realistic, the thing where like that Russian guy like and Zuckerberg sat down in this virtual thing and like how ahead of the curve they were, and like all the places are actually doing AI stuff right and monetizing it and just being like, all right, I'm gonna throw some money in here, and it's just been going up. And I don't think that like it's gonna, people are like, well, you're gonna run into it, but this is John Wheeler's investment hour that we've got joining now, but like, oh, it's going to be a real cold shower for everyone that's joining, like, VR and AI and all that stuff. It's like, it's a flash in the pan. And they said the same fucking thing about the internet in, like, 1998. Yeah. And, like, they said the same fucking thing about, like, video games in 1982. Yeah. And they said the same fucking thing about, like, all these things are, like, these analysts are like, well, it's about the end of color TV. People go back to black and white soon enough. And it's like, you guys are fucking stupid. I know that, like, there's not always a way to monetize it. There was, like, a .com bubble. But it's like... Still, though, if you're, like, well invested in any kind of telecom or internet thing or, like, whatever, or, like, Amazon, it's like, dude, it's just going to get more and more and more and more. Yeah. And going like, well, I invested in Tom's shoes because when you buy a pair, they give away a pair to a homeless person somewhere. And it's just like, they use vegan stuff. And if you're gonna invest like that, you're going to feel real good on your way to the poorhouse. And I just...
How much of that shit do you think is bullshit? Where it's like, how many... Do you think they're actually giving out a pair of shoes? Well, I'm not saying they don't give out no pairs of shoes, and I'm not, and I'm also not calling out them directly, but just how many times do you think, just in general, do you think that happens? Where
The Simpsons answered it best when Lisa went to the Springfield Shopper, founded by Johnny Newspaper Seed in 1898, who went around founding newspaper companies across North America. But the lady running the tour said. It's like the Springfield Shopper donates a certain percentage of the profits to charity every single quarter. And she's like, what's the percentage? She's like, 0. 0's a percent. Whenever they have a certain percentage, is that certain percentage nothing? Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. You should never, when a place asks you to round up, you know, they're like, do you want to give to this like fucking charity?
That's another one.
Don't ever do that. You should never give to charity. No, you should, certain things you should do. You should go volunteer somewhere if you really want to do something. But the thing is, when Taco Bell goes like, do you want to round up, you know, for these burritos to this thing, Taco Bell is going to donate the same amount of money they always were going to whatever that cause is, whether you donate to them or not. Because they get this thing called, are you ready, boys and girls, who are living paycheck to paycheck? They get a thing called a tax write-off. See, when you make a little bit more money than what you need to survive, you pay taxes on some of it, and the game becomes, how do I get the most of that back? Like, I just did a crypto rinse scheme a little while ago, and, you know, my tax return's going to be pretty good this year. But it wouldn't work if I wasn't paying a shitload of money between my wife and I and the house and taxes or whatever. It wouldn't have worked back when I was 15 and getting $5 an hour at Target. It was 1995, but I showed them. That's a different story. But like...
They had it coming.
They can't sell cigarettes anymore. And the thing is like, you know, Oops, I lost my train of thought. What the fuck was I talking about? Something about taxes and then, like, writing things off, I think.
Yeah, just tax write-offs.
But I think I was going somewhere. I actually think I kind of lost wherever it was because I'm just a little bit too drunk and I've been awake for a little bit too long.
That's a good sign.
That is a really good sign. But
I think I couldn't remember, too, because I smoked that joint way earlier than normal, too.
And really fast.
Yeah.
And also, like, enough to where, like, I think it made me a little bit high also.
That could be, yeah.
But what the fuck was I going to... Something about... Taco Bell and not giving to charity. Yes. Okay, yes. I'm so glad because that's actually really important. That wow. I almost lost that one to the night. And people were yelling at the screen being like, you're talking about fucking Taco Bell. Okay, but here's the thing. So, yeah, they make gazillions of dollars a year. And they want to keep as much of it as possible and not give it to their employees. So and to any sort of social program. So it's like they go, okay, well, we donate a bunch of money to charity so we can write that all off so we can keep all these taxes. Now, here's what they need your donations for. They need your donations so that money they donate to charity to rinse their fucking, like, you know, tax returns or whatever. So it's like they can write it all off and being like, we give to a charitable thing every year, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be a number that they already had planned that has whatever to do with however much they make. But when you donate stuff to them, it's a tax-free shovel full of dirt to refill the hole they made donating. So they actually get it back on the back end. Of like, they're not taking your money and donating it. They're donating it so they don't have to pay taxes, but they still have to donate that money, and they make it back from your dumbass who rounds up to help the children or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you really want to help the children, check on your elderly parents' hoarder houses because it might contain 1,000 pounds of old school child porn, like we also discovered via the news recently.
Yeah. So where do you get? We were just opining about that off before we started of like, you literally have to almost be on the show Hoarders with nothing but child porn for you to have actual metric tons of child porn.
What was the news story? Because we're going off, we're assuming people know because we were talking about it earlier. I think you remember the specifics.
Let me go to the tape real quick.
Okay, yeah.
I'll read you a headline.
Go to the highlight reel on this. I mean, yeah.
Florida man found with over 1 ton of child pornography.
That is the scariest looking guy I think I've ever seen.
Oh, he's terrifying. I don't know.
Like, you're trying to hold him up to the camera a little bit.
Oh my god!
It looks like Emperor. Hang on, let it go. It looks like Emperor Palpatine fucked a Skeksis. Like
it's somehow weirdly with the fucking
he looks
light
like an alien.
like even more creepy.
Well, that's the last thing a lot of small children saw.
There he is. There he is.
Yeah,
this man right here. They literally, the FBI walked in and literally just took a look around and was like, just get the fucking Brinks truck and drive it over that fucking wayside station. They used to put semis on that have like too much shit in there.
What was it? It was like tons? Thousands of tons?
It literally said...
It was like paper, right? It was like magazines.
A man was arrested after thousands of pounds. Materials found in his home, taken into custody. Big surprise there.
Yeah, you're done when they find that.
Can I say something really mean?
Yes.
And possibly very upsetting to a lot of people.
Please do.
If you get to a point where you have a metric ton of child porn, just fuck a kid.
You heard it here first, folks. Quit beating around the goddamn bush. Go out there and live your truth.
I mean, I'm not advocating that, but
well, the truth of the matter is, you're going to jail forever either way, right? And
no, because actually,
you can't lure one into your house.
So, well, I don't know if you saw this too. This is also kind of interesting. Is in Florida, Ron DeSantis, I think.
Legalize child porn, because that sounds like something he'd do.
No, actually, kind of the opposite. Where they passed some law now where if you get convicted of rape of a minor under 12, they can give you the death penalty. And I don't know if they're gonna actually do that. You know what I mean? Like, I know that can get like very discretionary. But I was just thinking, to the joke I just made, is like obviously that would feel bad for the poor like 6-year-old or whoever has to take that. But then you could kind of get that guy out of here, though. Because I just have a feeling if you have thousands of pounds of child porn, you're not like a really like highly
awesome
functioning,
guy.
Contributing member to society.
You very much probably are not. No. And by the way, though, I do want to say that I am so proud of them for actually putting under 12 in there. Because personally, for reasons I won't disclose, I am just so tired of people going like a 17-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy, and we're just going to use the same language. I'm like, oh, you go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Unless you're a child, and it's illegal.
Yep.
I hate that this thing is here. But yeah.
That's okay.
That is a...
I mean, I don't know.
That is a very bad man.
Mean thing to say, but it's just like
at that
point it's just like
if I steal that for a stand-up thing, will you be mad at me? Because
no, I will not. I wasn't even.
I want to, because like the lead-in. Here's just the only part I want to workshop a little bit, is that the lead-in was good. I kind of still didn't know where you were going with it until it was too late, and I love that. But like going like it's like I don't want to be an asshole, but. Yeah. I think that part could be replaced with like a minute or two of a winding fake out that like I think that I'd be like, and you know what? If you if you by the time you have that much child porn when I was just fucking kid, God, that is I want to get booed off stage the next time that is just perfect.
Well, the only reason I hesitated was it wasn't even to try and be overly dramatic about it as much as like. You can say a lot of offensive things that won't get people that riled up, but, like, people do get weird about that.
You know what I would love, honestly, is if... Now, I only say some flack because I don't want anything bad to happen to you or I or whatever, but I would love for someone who's just too interested in trying to be a goody two-shoes to just clip you saying that and then put it on... Hang on, put it on like a I don't know what like a campaign to go. This guy, he's these guys we kind of know about, and he said this. Yeah, it was on an episode of the podcast. What was the episode called, Don? It was called Gaza Strippers. And just have everybody stop caring that just being like, well, okay,
yeah, like
this is just some Shane Gillis crap we don't give a fucking shit about. Oh, by the way, Derek sent me the clip of the Shane Gillis thing where it's like a YouTube channel they have, and he makes a commercial for ISIS Ford. That's a pretty fucking good one. Check that out, 10 people that watch this.
Yeah.
To the thousands of people that watch that. Okay, so I really think that we did a pretty good job of... I don't know, consternating an already elaborate situation and then bringing up stuff and not mentioning poop somehow. But now that I said it out loud, I feel a little bit bad. Wasn't there one more thing you were talking about where there...
I'll rattle a couple of them off at you quick.
We'll do a few headlines and then we'll do Dear Asshole and then we'll call it a podcast.
All right.
And I'll put it on the internet.
U.S. Customs officials seize giraffe feces from woman at Minnesota airport.
Oh, that was a local story.
That was a local story. She wanted to make poop necklaces, I guess. She had made them already with moose, but she didn't have to travel internationally with those.
Really? She didn't have to go to Canada?
No, I think she got them from Minnesota, like northern Minnesota.
Do we have moose here?
Oh, yeah. Up in like Superior National Forest, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I guess I wasn't. I have seen one, and it was just...
Lutz and Grand Marais. up in there.
Yeah, I was up around the Boundary Waters, and those are fucking so much scarier than people give them credit for.
So I'll rattle this one off for you.
Okay.
Prosecutors say a reckless driving suspect bit an NYPD officer's fingertip off.
Cool.
I thought that was kind of neat.
Was the officer like giving them a stern dressing down and like, and just got him?
I don't know.
That's really the cop's fault at that point. Like, come on.
Well, this was the one we were looking at earlier. I had a life-threatening allergic reaction. I filmed a TikTok instead of using my EpiPen.
Yeah, the best part is you could really do both. You know what I mean? You could go, I filmed a TikTok video rather than calling 911 because my phone was all tied up making a TikTok. But it's like you could hold your phone and the EpiPen in the other hand and just stick it in your neck. But I guess, like, if you don't get allergic-y looking enough, then you can't get those sweet internet points.
So this last one wasn't so funny, but it more made me just opine the question.
Wasn't as funny as a metric ton of child porn. Or an emotional support alligator.
Yeah. Drugs found wrapped around Florida man's penis during traffic stop. And
oh, yeah.
It really more just made me think of, like, where is the best place to put drugs nowadays? Is it wrapped around your penis? Do people
clearly
like,
no.
Is boofing still a thing?
Because the cops found them. Yeah, probably up your. You have a thing.
Oh,
right. Other side. A little.
Oh,
it's like probably ash.
Yeah, I think it was in a van.
There's so much like weed, ash, and shit floating. Like, look at the light over there. It's still just hazy as shit from like.
Yeah, I think there was.
But
not bad.
No, it's fine. This table is a wreck. I like definitely snorted more than Adderall off of it because I don't ever wash this table. Shit though, what were we just talking about? Well,
just the guy that wrapped drugs around his penis.
Oh yeah, like I a condom of whatever up your butt is still the gold standard. I think like there's not, there's a Grampy said that he would like freeze clean urine and like in a condom and then like shove that up his butt and let it like thaw naturally and then take it out and squeeze it into the cup for the sake of staying on certain medications and stuff and
probably incredibly like good idea because it would just warm up to body temperature too.
Yeah, it's like keep the pee in your butt. That's like, that's turns out that's that when everybody on the playground used to say you got a girl pregnant by peeing in her butt when we were in like second grade, it was a little garbled. It was more like, no, if you want to pass a drug test, keep the pee in your butt. And that has nothing to do with the miracle of life. So anyway, it is time to read. I got to remember because the last one I did was on the live one, and I threw this book across like a whole auditorium because I usually just whip it at the drum set over there, but
no.
And we all, by the way, your theory that this was AI, and then later the fact that what we looked at the year it was made, making it sort of impossible unless it fell through a wormhole, which I also think is possible. But everyone loves it. Like every audience, every other co-host is like, God, that's a good theory that it's AI, but it came out in 2011. Unless that's a lie, unless they just printed that it did to throw you off the trail.
Yeah,
and
we got to do that idea I was talking about today at work.
Which one?
Like, wow, I feel like I can't say it where people know it.
Ooh, I can't remember what you're talking. We talk so much fucking shit at work.
I don't know. I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh fuck! It's gonna fuck with me until you. But all right. The important thing is we're gonna read another page out of Dear Asshole, which is gonna take just forever. And I will because we did the live one where I had to like there were a couple of people there and everything, so I actually had to like go through and explain what this horrible book is. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read the page. Dear Asshole Debbie Downer. Now I disagree with a lot of this book, but I do think that this might be going in a direction that I like. A lot of it is like classist, some of it is racist. But going like, hey, quit being so negative, you're ruining the vibes, is a thing I sort of agree with because, we talk a lot of shit, but generally we're happy to be here. And, the only reason we look forward again to World War III is a booming economy after everywhere else is all blown up. And that's, I want to live through that. Anyway, chill out with the tragic statistics and morbid topics of conversation. Oh, like fucking Palestine and Israel. No one wants to hear how many kittens died last year from feline AIDS. Wow. which is a thing.
Oh, it is a thing.
Or how much your irritable bowel acts up when you eat spicy foods. Well, that's just funny. Well, enough already. You're putting everyone in a bad mood. By the way, I do want to say that feline AIDS might be pretty depressing, although I don't like cats, so I don't care. But, like, stories about spicy foods causing, diarrheal spray in an airplane bathroom or whatever are not downers. Those are hilarious.
Well, and also, too, like, me farting in the middle of dinner is not me trying to make you feel bad.
When I do it, it is, but I could have held it, but I decided that I was tired of hearing you talk, and I was going to change the subject the worst way I know how. Also, I don't know that we've ever brought this up before, but Chris is the only you're the reason that I know that you can actually light your farts on fire.
Yeah.
I thought that was an urban myth. Like, I watched you do it one time.
Yeah.
And it was like a lot of fire, too.
Yeah, there's video of it somewhere. Yeah.
And
you can make a little flamethrower if you
yeah.
Right.
I was like, that's a thing? Like, I always thought that was like a trope. Like, I thought that was a joke. And then you were just sitting there like, well, and then you just like put your ankles behind your head and just blew, just woof. Just...
It is all about the right angle.
It was like, whoa! Like, yeah, like, it was like being at a Rammstein concert. Like, it was exciting.
It is. You can lose an eyebrow quick.
Oh, if I'd been any closer on the bench, yeah, I think. So anyway, like, yeah, how dare they besmirch fucking the old spicy, irritable. It's all a good time. So anyway, these people, they're just too good for it. Yeah, I don't know. The last time I heard you say something positive is that you were positive something horrible was going to happen. Pop a Prozac or two because you're so depressed. Oh, this is a magical time before benzos were such a thing. You're so depressed. The glass isn't half empty, it's broken, and you want to cut yourself with it. Wow!
That's harsh.
They're going for it.
Yeah.
It sounds like something I would say in a drunken rage where I was actually really mad at someone who was being intentionally negative way too much. Like, the glass isn't half empty, it's broken, and you want to cut you. That's almost an SMB lyric. Like, that's kind of a... That's almost good. Yeah. Underline that.
Well, don't say this book never did anything for you.
Well, it definitely made the last 10 minutes of this incoherent podcast pretty funny for the last few months, but yeah. Faithfully yours. I don't know why they said that. P.S. Thanks, but I don't need a 10-minute soliloquy on hurricane fatalities every time it rains. Well, let me tell you, I do. I would love... Yes, fuck you, book. Frankly, the only person I know who actually like kind of gave like a doom and gloom thing whenever it would rain, be like my mother was always of the opinion that if like water was falling out of the sky at all, you're out of your mind if you're going to go through with whatever plans you had that day. Like you can't just go driving around while there's like rain and clouds in the sky. It's like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And that is a weird way to live.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't really call my mom a Debbie Downer, just only exactly about that, about weather. It's like, well, you're not going to go to work today, are you? I'm like, I have to, I think. Like, like it's raining out. You're going to die. And it's just because, you know, she's afraid of cars on the road and stuff, and so it's like obviously like everyone else has to be right. All right, don't you hate driving when it's raining? It's too dangerous, right, everybody? I'm not weird for being totally afraid of that. Like that's not a crazy thing. It won't be if everyone agrees with me, which is I think where a lot of major religions come from.
Probably, yeah.
So we know when we die, it's not just nothing, right? We all go to heaven. We all go to heaven. Well, not the people we don't like, of course. They don't go. That would be ridiculous. We don't want to be there with them. But like, it's not just me, is it? I'm not the only one that thinks this. We're all so afraid that we're gonna make something up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Reverend John Wheeler podcast takes zero responsibility for the words, actions, or ideas of its host, guests, or listeners. Though the people on the screen may at times be speaking directly to you and may occasionally give you direct calls to action, neither Reverend John nor the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge are under any moral or legal obligation to answer for the potentially disastrous repercussions that may arise if you are stupid enough to actually follow the orders of a raving lunatic. Think for yourself and do whatever you want, because you're on your own. If anyone ever tries to sue this podcast, podcast, black SUVs will converge on your location in the darkness of night and you will never be seen again. Remember to like and subscribe.